Welcome back to the Journey podcast, a conversation series from Collegiate Sports Associates featuring leaders from across the intercollegiate athletics and higher education landscape. In this episode, CSA Vice President for Consulting, Dr. Brad Bates, sits down with Dan Bartholomae, Vice President and Director of Athletics at Western Michigan. Dan and Brad discuss Dan's journey through intercollegiate athletics, including his rise to the big chair in Kalamazoo, and discuss the Broncos' reign strategic plan and all of the success the Broncos have had under Dan's leadership. This episode also features the most intriguing hot seat questions, so stay tuned to learn so much more about Dan Bartholomae, including his secret life as a musician and his expertise in Spanish. This is an episode not to be missed. Brad, take it away.
So, Dan, great to have you on today. I really appreciate you taking the time, and rather than kind of do a prolonged conversation first, I want to jump into some hot seat questions for you so people can get to know you, if you're good with that.
Yeah, that sounds fun. Let's do it, Brad.
All right. How do you spend your non-Bronco time?
I've got two kids, 15 and 13. I shuttle them to youth sporting events and try to hang out with them as much as I possibly can.
That's great. How about hobbies? What hobbies do you have?
Well, athletic directors probably don't have enough hobbies, especially when they have two teenage kids. I enjoy running, so I try to run about 4 or 5Ks a week early in the morning and get a workout in as well before work starts. So that's probably kind of sad. I still play soccer. I'm in and my son calls it old man soccer league. So I do carve out Monday nights to play soccer with my buddies in Kalamazoo.
Oh, that's great. What position?
Well, it's 5-on-5 indoor, but when I actually played, I played striker.
Gotcha. And if I have 72 hours to spend in Kalamazoo, what do I need to do and see?
Yeah, totally. So you're coming in the fall, right? Probably October-ish. You're going to get to a hockey game at Lawson Arena on Friday night. All right. You're going to get to a football game at Waldo Stadium on Saturday. And then any of our other sports that might be competing, it could be a little volleyball, could be a little men and women's basketball. I'm thinking again, October. Get over to University Arena and check out some Bronco sports. We've got a great art scene in Kalamazoo too. So if you can squeeze in a play or some live music, that's always a fun thing to do.
Oh, that's great. I'm ready to come. All right. What's a bucket list vacation destination?
Hawaii. Easy.
Nice.
Never had a bad time in Hawaii.
And what is Kalamazoo's equivalent of Primanti Brothers?
Whew. In fairness, I don't think there's an equivalent anywhere to Primanti Brothers. But if I'm in town in Kalamazoo and I want to get a sandwich that I can't get anywhere else, there's a chicken sandwich at a place called Non-Bronco that is pretty solid.
That's great. And for people who don't know, Primanti Brothers is a famous sandwich shop in the Pittsburgh area. And then I'm going to test you a little bit here. Referring to the lyrics in the Bronco fight song, how do you say "over one, over all, we will reign" in Spanish?
Sobre uno, sobre todos, ganaremos.
Very nice. Now, next time I'll ask you to actually sing that. How's that sound?
Yeah. Well, you're pushing it.
All right, so let's jump into it. You're a Pittsburgh native. You went to school at Indiana University, earned a bachelor's in policy analysis. What is policy analysis?
Yeah, public policy and policy analysis. I think probably the best way to describe it, it was a great mix between political science and business. When I was growing up, I was always drawn to leadership. Leadership was always something that I was interested in before I even knew I was interested in it. Right, I was always the person who volunteered to lead. Whatever the effort was. I wanted to be the captain of the soccer team. I was a musician and I was a concert master of the orchestras that I was in. So leadership was always really something that I was drawn towards. And so in college, I thought that politics was the path for me, and public policy and policy analysis was the major that I guess best equipped you to go down that career path. And I enjoyed the coursework. I loved it. And I thought that was what I was going to do until I was in a program called the Indiana Leadership Academy, where they actually paired you in an internship with a politician. And so I did that program. I did my junior year. I loved that. I worked for the Monroe County Commissioners. I was right in sort of town square in Bloomington, Indiana. Super cool. And I realized that I love leadership. I loved working with people. I didn't mind, making tough decisions. I loved service. I loved, again, being around people and working with the public. But I did not care at all where the stop sign was going to go in town square, which at that level of politics, like that's what we were dealing with. And so that sort of was my career moment where I decided, what can I do where I can, utilize those leadership skills that I'm interested in, but put it towards an output that I enjoyed a little bit more. And so that's kind of how I got into college athletics.
Yeah, and what a great internship program to expose you to that, so you get a chance to decide whether that's what you really want to do or not before you actually jump in after graduation. That's terrific. So let me unpack a couple things here. First of all, you said you're a musician. What do you play?
Yeah, I was a musician. I still have it a little bit, Brad. But yeah, I was an athlete growing up, but I was also a violinist and played violin. I played in the Pittsburgh Youth Symphony and the Three Rivers Young People's Orchestra in Pittsburgh, and that was a really big part of my development as a young student. Heading into college, and something that was really important to me and that I enjoyed. I gave it up. Once I got into the university and kind of decided to go down a different path. I still have it. My son played for a little bit, so I brought it back out when he was playing, and that was fun. But it's kind of collected dust in the closet right now.
So fascinating. The cultures of music and sports, vastly different, and yet the training, the rehearsals, the practice, the dedication and commitment, talk about the parallels.
No doubt. And it's funny because I talk about that from time to time, with various groups on campus, that there's a ton of parallels, right? First of all, to your point, yes, the discipline, the practice, there's an element of perfectionism in music, right? Like if you make a mistake, it's very audible, right? And even people who aren't, skilled musicians, like they can hear when the note's flat. So there is an element of perfectionism to it that I think translates really well to leadership into this industry. I talked about being a concertmaster, wanting to lead, right? When you're the leader of an orchestra, what you learn is that you're no more important than any part of that, of that orchestra. And so while you may be assigned that role, really you're leading from the front, which also, when you think about it, is important to what we're doing in this industry as well. My position is no more important than the trainer or the academic advisor or the coach, right? But I've been selected to lead from the front, and that's a skill that I developed, as a musician. The other one that I point out a lot is the skill of improvisation, right? Like right now, I don't know what you're going to ask me. I tell aspiring athletic directors, like, you better have 3 stock speeches ready to go at any given moment, because you never know when you're going to need to speak in front of a group. And so I think that element of just, being trained to be up on a stage and having to think on your feet a little bit also has lent itself really well to this role.
Yeah, great point. Your ability to communicate and anticipate is so important. And let's go to the other thing you referenced, being captain. Talk about the parallels between leadership roles and as a musician and as a captain of the team.
Well, I think the most important when you're a captain is you're setting the example for the rest of the team, right? And so while those are your peers and those are your buddies, and you want to be on the same level as them, the effort you put in every single day, the way you take care of yourself, how you show up, your attitude, that trickles down to the rest of the team. And if you take a day off as the captain, then the rest of the team's probably taking a day off as well. So to me, I think that's probably the most important lesson, and the one that translates best to this seat is, when you show up to work every day, like the rest of the culture and the attitude of the department in some ways follows yours. And if you want your department to have a certain culture and conduct themselves in a certain way, well, man, you better live that every single day and never give up, never let up for 1 second. I think you learn those as being a captain of a sports team for sure.
Yeah, actions definitely support and give credibility to your words for sure. So from IU, you did you go immediately to Pittsburgh for your MBA?
I did. Well, not for my MBA. So I did go immediately to the University of Pittsburgh. And the story there is, so obviously I decided my junior year of college I was not going to be a politician. And so then I was sort of in this like odd space of what am I going to do? And it was my senior year. I'd been encouraged to go to grad school for public policy. And so I was thinking about that, but I knew it didn't really feel right. And I knew that I was passionate about athletics and I wanted to lead. I was familiar with athletic departments and how they worked and what athletic directors did.
Sure.
And I was fortunate that I had some contacts at the University of Pittsburgh. I'd grown up in Pittsburgh, so I had some contacts there. And I just reached out to them and said, hey, I'd love to just learn a little bit about what you do and have a conversation with you. And as it turned out, my senior year spring break, instead of going to South Padre with all my friends, I went back to Pittsburgh and shadowed a bunch of people in the University of Pittsburgh athletic department. Just got a chance to understand what that day-to-day life was like. People who I still talk to this day and who still work in the industry and who are still great friends. But one person who I met with was a woman named Donna Samps, who at the time was overseeing the sort of compliance and life skills and sport administration department at Pitt. And fortunately, right before graduation in Indiana, she called and said, hey, I enjoyed talking to you and spending time with you. I've got a GA position open and I'd love to have you interview for it if you're interested. And so I graduated from Indiana. I showed up at her. I swear it feels like the next day. I'm sure there's probably a couple of days in between, and interviewed for that position. And then served as her GA for a year, which then led to a full-time position in the department. I then later, as I was working full-time, went and did my MBA at night at the University of Pittsburgh. So I was working full-time in the department, going to go into class at night to get the MBA.
Well, two great examples of commitment. I mean, while your buddies are partying down in South Padre, you're developing professional relationships and expanding your network that lead to a job ultimately. And then the commitment to take night classes to get an MBA, that had to be an incredible structure of your time, I'm sure. So during your formal educational experiences, is there a professor or teacher, K through 12 teacher that stands out that was particularly inspirational to you?
Yeah, I'll give you two. They are pre-university. So one, I had it was actually my orchestra conductor in middle school. I went to a public school in Pittsburgh in middle school that actually specialized in the arts. And was actually recruited to go there by an orchestra conductor named Mr. Yetzi. And Mr. Yetzi was like, he was, I don't know if I can say badass on this, but he was badass. He was tough, cared about the students, loved music, and made you better. And so I remember, as a sixth grader being in his orchestra. And all those traits we talked about that translate themselves so well to leadership, Mr. Yetzi embodied. And so when I think back, I probably didn't appreciate him enough back then. But when I think back now to the example that he set, and really, as I said, like the passion that he had for what he did as a teacher and as a musician, and his willingness to spend the amount of time and really push you to be the best you could be, I've never forgot it. Never forgotten it. And then in high school, I had a Spanish teacher. Her name was Mrs. Levinson. And Mrs. Levinson was one of the most unique individuals that you could ever imagine. Didn't necessarily look, dress, or talk the same as everybody else, but really brought a unique and really warm quality of character to what she did. And it made her stand out, I think, in a really, really positive way, but also super passionate about her skill set. Like, loved Spanish, man, like loved it. And when you walked into her class, like, you didn't speak English, you only spoke Spanish. That was it. And if that wasn't cool with you, like, you weren't going to last in her class. I think back then and just really respect the passion that she had for that subject. It was really cool.
It's fantastic. And two great examples. I mean, so often those of us in the world of athletics, when we're asked questions similar to that, our mentors have been from the world of athletics, and the reference to educators, I think, is fantastic. So anyway, from Pittsburgh, you climb the ladder and then you end up going to Oregon State and Corvallis. Maybe talk about how, because those are two very different campuses, how the cultures at Pitt and at Oregon State prepared you to be a Bronco.
Yeah. Great point. And really the changing cultures was kind of the point with that move. So I'll starting with Pitt, I was at Pitt for 15 years. And which is, Brad, not typical in this industry.
No.
You start out somewhere as a GA. And I started out working in the mailroom, right? And I left Pitt as the deputy athletic director. And I did about every job at that school that you could imagine. And so that was home. I was firmly entrenched there. There was a lot to love about the culture of Pitt. There was a great investment from the university administration during my time there. The university administration was invested in athletics, and what I saw that do was allow for a culture of transparency between athletics and campus, right? That we know doesn't always exist. But fortunately, I was born into this university where that trust and that respect and that collaboration and working relationship was already there. So that was all I knew, right? And I kind of built my career on collaborating with the provost office, right? The admissions office, marketing, general counsel, all these entities that I saw as colleagues, friends, peers, and people who wanted to help you get to where you want to be. And so that, when I look back at Pitt, that was probably the most important lesson that I learned at the University of Pittsburgh, is how magical that can be when that culture exists. Now, I was there for 15 years, right? And if you count Steve Peterson twice, because he was there twice while I was there, and if you count all of the interim athletic directors, I worked for 9 ADs in 15 years, which was another, honestly, really valuable lesson. I wouldn't say that was part of Pitt's culture, but I certainly learned a lot about transition and how to thrive and succeed and continue to elevate through transition, and how hard that is, because of the experiences that I had there with those circumstances. The last AD that I worked, and I love them all. I mean, I worked for Steve Peterson, I worked for Jeff Long, I worked for Scott Barnes, I worked for Heather Like. I mean, man, if you don't learn things from those people, I don't know,
Great group.
can't help you. But Scott Barnes was one that really sort of helped propel my career into the sort of the leadership role that I'm in now. Scott saw something in me, gave me autonomy to be who I was and to make my own decisions, right? Of course, under his guidance, but really kind of, I say, let me spread my wings and fly a bit. And I appreciated that when I was at the University of Pittsburgh. And of course, we worked together for, just like everything else at Pitt. I worked for Scott for like 20 months, and then he left and went to Oregon State.
Right.
And my initial reaction was like, well, that stinks, because I'm not going. I don't even know where that is. I'm not going there. And I remember on his way out the door, he gave me some really, really good advice, which it's never left me, and I really appreciate it. And he said, Dan, this is a great place for you here at Pitt, and they love you here, and this is a place that will always be home to you, and you always feel at home, and you'll always have an opportunity to break in the next athletic director. And that'll be the case until you get outside of your comfort zone a bit. And, of course, he didn't know what the future was going to hold for him at Oregon State and what that was going to look like, but he opened the door for, hey, if there's an opportunity there, let's talk about it. And so that connection to Scott really is what drew me to Oregon State. But as I thought about the opportunity, and I had other opportunities at the time, one of the things that really stood out, frankly, as you said, Brad, was that I was going from the ACC to the Pac-12. I was going from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania to Corvallis, Oregon. You couldn't have imagined two more different places.
Right.
So I thought to myself, if I'm going to do this, right, if I'm going to step outside of my comfort zone, well, let's go to about the most different place that you could possibly imagine, where you still feel like you can have some success at a high level. And so Oregon's me brought that opportunity. And then, working at Oregon State, in terms of culture and lessons learned, I mean, one of the things that was kind of neat is Scott and I got there together. And so we had an opportunity to develop our own culture in a way, right? I mean, you have cultural norms that you inherit, but I learned about it. And it was something that that really helped me in this seat. I learned about being a new leader in a new place and helping, shift the culture in a really positive direction. And Scott gave me the opportunity to lead the strategic plan there. He gave me oversight of football. Obviously we had it made a huge hire in Jonathan Smith and really turned that program around. gave me oversight of the sport administration team, and gave me the opportunity to lead in a place that I was unfamiliar with, and for which we could kind of, stamp our own culture, and obviously learned a ton of lessons that I was able to bring here with me.
Yeah, really excellent examples. I think a great takeaway, and you sort of referenced this, staying at one place for so long is so rare today. And yet going to a completely different culture and get a completely different experience obviously has value to it. I think there's an optimum point somewhere between that loyalty to your organization and learning as much as you can and doing the best job that you can in the position you're in right now, and learning at other places and not just taking jobs because it pays more. It's got a different, higher title. You were very deliberate in making that transition, and obviously it worked out for you.
I had a lot of great mentors and bosses along the way, and I referenced the athletic directors at Pitt, right? I mean, you stay at a place that long, that means you're continuously being challenged in new areas, and they're giving you the opportunity to take on those challenges. And to your point, yeah, there were always opportunities to leave and get more money. And those are conversations I have with staff now, that sometimes that's the most important thing. And I get that. Sometimes it's not. And so really, to your point, you've got to find that balance. You've got to find the right time to make the move. And hindsight's always 20/20, but I look back on that move from Pitt to Oregon State, and I'd say it all the time. It was the most important thing that I did in my life professionally, without question. That also allowed me to grow the most personally.
That's great. All right, back to the hot seat. These are entertainment interests.
Okay.
What is the greatest music decade?
90s hip hop and R&B. Easy.
The movie that you stop and watch it again and again whenever it is on.
Field of Dreams.
Book you reread because of its influence on you.
Obstacle is the way.
Favorite pro team?
Favorite pro team?
Yes.
Pittsburgh Pirates, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's okay to say that right now because the Tigers are in first place.
I know, trust me.
Last concert you attended?
Avett Brothers in Kalamazoo.
Oh, very good. All right, let's
going to see Bruno Mars. Going to see Bruno Mars next week, though, with my kids. So we're excited.
That's great. Have fun. All right, so let's move to Western. What's been accomplished in your short period of time there has been fantastic. You just look at the academics. You've elevated the GPA mark 3 times just in that short period of time. You set an academic progress rate school record last year. You swept the MAC FAR awards in 23. In service, you've led the MAC in back-to-back years in terms of community service with your student athletes and staff. Competitively, even before this year, you had already set a school record for team championships during the 23-24 season, had 6 NCAA appearances, 9 All-Americans, and a Herman Award finalist. And oh, by the way, you won a national championship in men's ice hockey this year. Talk about the buildup and celebration, first of all, of the Natty, but also the collective successes that you're experiencing holistically within the department.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll start with kind of the buildup departmentally, and then I think it translates well to the national championship for sure, which was really cool this year. So I go back to my experience at Oregon State, right? I was able to walk in the door there with Scott. Our decision was, we're going to put together a strategic plan for the department. We're going to put it down on paper. We're going to set goals, and we're going to establish the department what was important to us, right? Which really ties back really nicely to my professional values, which are clear vision, collaboration, and transparency, right? So I know that works for me as a leader. And so walking in the door at Western, the timing was perfect, to be honest with you. I was coming in, we were coming out of COVID. We had these huge budget cuts, just like everybody else. There was a lot of turnover in the department. Obviously, I've been following a legend in Kathy Beauregard, who had been here for over 30 years. And all those things together really gave me the opportunity to start with a completely blank slate. And so, we took advantage of that. And with the background I had at Oregon State in strategic planning, got in front of our my constituent groups, my athletes, my staff, my coaches, and said, hey, are we ready for a total reset here? because I think we are, and I think we need to put it down on paper. I think we need to decide who we want to be, and we got to decide how we're going to get there. And so we spent the first 6 months thoroughly engaged in the strategic planning process. And it might sound bureaucratic on the surface, but I think for this department and for our culture, it was a really, really important first step. We engaged everybody on that. Not just, we sent a SWOT survey out in writing to as many constituents as we could, but I brought people in. I listened, I asked questions, and I had a lot of great data on what was working really, really well, what needed to improve, and really, what was making people nervous about the changing landscape of intercollegiate athletics. At that point, we set a new vision for the department and a new mission and a new set of priorities and strategic goals. And our vision was driven by really 3 things. We set a vision that said, if you're an athlete and you come here and you commit to us and you graduate, we're going to promise you 3 things. 1, you're going to graduate holistically prepared to pursue your passions in life. 2, you're going to make a high quality connection with the community that's going to last you beyond your eligibility. And 3, you're going to win a championship, right? We're going to be bold, and we're going to say we're going to do those 3 things. And if we don't in your 4 to 5 year period here at Western, then we've got to go back to the drawing board and figure out how to achieve that goal for the next group. And we put those goals down on paper, and we were bullish about them. The goals that were going to lead us there were leading the country in the holistic development of our athletes, winning championships at the highest level in our leagues, aggressively generating revenue at the highest level of our league, creating a welcoming environment for our staff, students, and our fans, elevating our facilities, and engaging our community. And then we all just committed to it, right? Like the goal was winning championships, right? It wasn't coming in 3rd or 4th. The goal was winning championships. And when you have a goal that's written down on paper and you get the buy-in from your staff and your coaches, to start building towards those goals, and you start seeing them happening, which is what you just described, right? The GPA records, the community service records, the championships. I mean, those are all things that was important to us. We were going to do it. And it's a domino effect. And to your point, it led right up to that hockey national championship. And Coach Birschweiler, I would say was one of the first coaches. Pat was here when I got here. He was one of the first coaches in that first staff meeting when we rolled out the plan. And I put a big slide on the screen that said "believe," right? And I stole it from Ted Lasso, and I didn't even care, right? Believe, because believe we're going to do this. Because if you don't believe, it's not going to work for you, right? But if you believe, like, we're going to get there. And Pat was one of the first people who came in and said, "Man, I believe we can do this here. I believe this is a program that can win a national championship. Here are the things we're going to need to get there. And all right, buddy, we're partners. Let's get together and figure out how to build this program into a position where you can win that national championship." And then, of course, 3.5 years later, here we are. Now, the most important thing we do, right, according to our plan, is we celebrate the heck out of championships. And man, I will tell you, we were ready to celebrate that national championship. I mean, and that's the great thing about a plan, is my staff and we knew exactly what we wanted that to look like. And so when we won that championship, right, for one, we paid for the students to come down to the championship.
Oh, that got a lot of publicity. That was
part of the run, right? Yeah. So and I knew that 2 years ago. Like, if we made it to the Frozen Four, we're paying for the students. And so we had these plans of what it would look like, and you don't know that it's going to work out, and it did. And so we were 14,000 strong down in St. Louis because we were ready, and we knew that was going to be an important moment for Kalamazoo and for this program. And our fans, they propelled us to the championship without question. And when our students landed in that plane, we had stretch limos waiting for them, right? We had a parade through the city. We had guys hanging out at the top of the cars. We had an armored tank that was leading us through the parade. I mean, and we were ready. We were ready to celebrate it. We were ready to celebrate it in a big way. And we do that, frankly, not at that level. That's national championship level. But we do that for all of our championships. If you win a championship here, you win it on the road, you're going to have a police escort on your way back, and you're going to have a banner and a group of people waiting for you at the building when you arrive. If you win it on campus, you're getting confetti showers. I mean, you see the images on social media. Intentional. Those are intentional. And so, yeah, I mean, you've got the plan and you set the culture, but man, you celebrate the heck out of wins. And it was really fun celebrating a national championship.
Well, and 2 things. When you plan to celebrate, that gets back to your belief. that we know we're going to do this, and this is how we're going to celebrate it, and adds to the buy-in. And yeah, I've seen the social media videos. You took advantage of it, but also, as you said, and I think your quote was something along the lines of, our students were with us all throughout the season and got us here. We're not leaving them behind. It was something along those lines. And it was perfectly capturing the moment and reinforced that this was a team effort and the whole university and community was involved. It was great. So shift a little bit. Let's talk about, you've got a big project going on downtown. How do you go from, in this short period of time, to developing partnerships with the community and the campus leadership to develop and build this new athletics performance center and Kalamazoo Events Center?
Yeah, well, a lot of hard work, and obviously a lot of great staff around me, and most importantly, amazing support from the community, right? And this arena concept has been floating around the Kalamazoo area for 2 decades, and the developer, the lead developer on the project, is somebody who I got to know very early during my tenure here, and is a great friend and mentor to me. And it had been his dream to build Kalamazoo up to the type of city it is today, right? A destination city in the Midwest. And part of that dream was to have an event center downtown that housed the best that Kalamazoo had to offer. And we both agreed that Western Michigan University is among the best that Kalamazoo had to offer. But it was very conceptual. And so fortunately in conversations with him, I was able to draw on my experiences, right? Working at the University of Pittsburgh, being at Heinz Field there, having some, quote unquote off-campus facilities, what works, what doesn't work. And obviously then at Oregon State, building a $160 million stadium renovation. And so we kind of put our heads together on what this should look like. And it morphed from really just an event center that was going to, house some of our hockey games, a couple of our basketball games, to a project that was going to be the home of Western Michigan. I felt really strongly that if we were going to move our facilities, we're about 3/4 of a mile down the road from Modo Stadium, so right at the entrance to downtown. If we were going to move our facilities, that had to be a home for our athletes. And if it was a home for our athletes, they had to train there. They had to live there. That was where all of their performance amenities were going to be. And fortunately, we had buy-in from the community and day one. And it was a new concept for campus. So that took some explaining. Again, I could lean on my experiences at other places to explain why that was so important. And at that point, we were off and running. And fortunately, again, I go back to the support of the community. The desire was not to build something that was just going to be okay. The desire was, we're going to build the best performance center and event center in the country to serve Western Michigan, right? And so that means it doesn't have to be as big as some of the ones at other institutions in the state or in the country. It's got to serve this community, but it's got to be the best. And we hopped in a plane, we toured the best of the best, and we walked out of every single one of those facilities, and we said the same thing. There were some nice things in that facility. We've taken some good notes. We're going to remember those, but ours is going to be better. And so here we are under construction. We've got a $515 million project, performance center for our men and women's basketball programs and hockey program. That includes practice courts, second sheet of ice, the best in training and recovery facilities, cryotherapy chambers, float tanks. We've got a strength and conditioning area that actually seals off and can simulate high altitude conditions. You remember our hockey program goes and they play in Denver, they play in Surratt. So we've got some really exciting performance amenities there, full training table, nutritional services, and of course locker room facilities and everything you would expect. And then we've got about a 6,000 seat arena, which is perfect for our community. That is going to have the greatest fan amenities and the greatest student amenities in the country. And we're finalizing design on those. We plan to go on sale here early 2026. That's when we'll start rolling out our sales strategies. And the town's already getting really excited. I mean, this is a 1 in 100 year opportunity for a city like Kalamazoo. And we're doing our part and everything we can to really engage the community and make them a part of this exciting project.
Yeah, and winning the national championship in the older building doesn't hurt any. That's
just not, Brad. It does not. But listen, let's credit the arena as part of that, right? that's a team that had 10 freshmen. There was a true freshman on every single line.
It was amazing.
Starting goalie was a freshman. And remember, when you're talking to those recruits, we're selling what's happening 2 years from now. And so, it's a nice bridge of our history and the success we've had in hockey and also what's to come.
Well, they didn't play like freshmen, as you know. So and most people don't really realize what an incredible town and community and the resources in Kalamazoo. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, that's why you go back to our vision statement and we say every student athlete is going to make a connection with the community that's going to last them beyond eligibility. And man, do we have the alums, the resources, and the industry to back that statement up. That's why when you see those community service hours, we want that for our students for sure. Those are important life skills and life lessons. That's a part of being in this community, is giving back. But during those community service opportunities, they're making connections with Stryker, with Pfizer, with a great other educational institutions that we're surrounded by, and really a vibrant community that extends from Battle Creek, all the way through Southwest Michigan to Kalamazoo, Portage, Mattawan, and other areas. There's great industry here, right? I mean, you've got Stryker. Your Stryker's headquarters are right here. Pfizer, right here. And really an unbelievable opportunity for our student athletes to see what life after college can be like, what that type of industry is like. But then, you've got the big boys, but you've got, local businesses, in smaller startup companies as well that are run by alums. Sleeping Giant Capital, who's run through our business school by a really talented professor, Doug Lepisto, who actually brings students in on venture capital projects, is another example. Right downtown, opportunity for our student athletes to connect, learn about industry, learn about what could be next in their lives. And it's something we definitely take advantage of.
Yeah, the experiential education opportunities in that community are just mind-boggling. What a great opportunity for students that go there. All right, let me go to the hot seat again. These are professional questions, or sort of think of them as professional advice. You kind of reference the 3 elevator speeches. How do you prepare speeches?
Thematically, right? I'll always be thinking about themes, and then you'll always be able to build underneath those themes. So if the theme is success and what's happening, what great things are happening in the Western Michigan University Department, I'm starting with our strategic plan, and then I'm building under those themes, right? So I'm always I got 3 bullets in my head, and then you can always fill with whatever is sort of the latest and greatest under those bullets.
Yeah, that's great. You've also talked a lot about leadership. How do you study leaders and leadership?
I watch. I watch. Of course, I read books like everybody else. I'm big on Stoic philosophy, so that's my go-to. But I watch press conferences and speeches from other leaders I respect, to not only hear what they're saying, but kind of study their mannerisms, see how they react to pressure and difficult questions. And so, yeah, I mean, I spend a lot of time trying to watch the leaders that I admire.
To work in athletics, to the general public, they assume we play games, and yet it's a time commitment. If you're going to be in athletics as a coach, administrator, staff member, whatever, how do you balance your work-life experience with Lauren, Dylan, and Lily, and how do you approach that?
Yeah, well, I value being a part of a community that's close knit, right? And that was a takeaway from Oregon State. That fit our family well. So we're not, super spread out in a huge city. We're in a more college town like atmosphere, so we can get places quickly and see each other quickly. You said it. Work-life balance is almost impossible as an athletic director. So you've got to figure out ways to bring your family in to what you're doing, and then when the priority is them, whether it's the soccer game or the gymnastics meet, the priority is them. I mean, it's shut off for that 2-3 hour period. And you say that, that's the most important thing to me on this day.
Tips for getting to know your students. You're so student centered. How do you spend time to get to know and learn their names, learn their backgrounds, develop relationships with your students?
I think it's just all about showing up, Brad. That's it. And certainly there's sacrifices that you make there, but I try to get in front of our whole student body at the beginning of every single year, and I don't try, I do it. And then I get in front of each team at the beginning of their official practice season. And then I show up to practice, I show up to games, I show up to life skills events. And that our student athletes they're awesome. They're personable, they're down to earth, they're fun to talk to, and you learn things about them, and those things are always memorable.
Yeah, and moving it to the staff and coaches, there are rumors that you host your entire department at your house periodically.
Every so often, we try to do a couple big staff outings a year. One is our holiday party, and we always want to make it fun, and it is fun. We do another event at the Kalamazoo Growlers stadium in the summer where we all get together and have a good time. I've had our coaches and senior staff and others at the house. The other thing that I do that is not unique by any means, but is important to me, it's an important culture piece for our department, is every staff member, regardless of what, GA, intern, head coach, every staff member in your first 2 weeks comes to my office for 15 minutes for a one-on-one, no agenda, get to know you. This is my office. It's not scary, I promise. Here's what's important to me, what's important to you. Tell me about the transition so far, just so you can kind of have that informal exchange that sometimes the workday just doesn't allow you to have with all of your staff. We try to get that done immediately upon the hire.
That's great. Understanding the power relationships and titles and trying to dilute that as much as possible. That's fantastic. So you've given us just a breadth of nuggets today from your experiences and perspectives. What have there's so many other things I could ask you. Is there anything that I haven't brought up that you'd like to talk about?
No, I think you hit it all, Brad. I appreciate it.
Dan, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. And I wonder if the commissioner, Steinbrecher, knows that between you and Derek, we have these incredible musicians leading athletic departments in the MAC.
I didn't know Derek was. That's good. That's good info. That's good info.
I'll be the first to buy tickets for your concert. All right. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Brad.